Old Billy Big Bollocks, Keir Starmer, says he's prepared to make some unpopular decisions. But beware of this, it's a sleight of hand. Because we can all live with some unpopular decisions. It would be unpopular not to give 11 billion to Africa if you're a massive greenie. It would be unpopular with the doctors if you decided to say, actually, we can't afford to pay you more. You get more when you're a consultant, so just hang in there. It would be unpopular with his Muslim massive if you were to say, do you know what, if you've got more than one wife, we're going to tax you on the number of wives you have. Those things would be unpopular, but maybe they'd be quite reasonable or rational. What he means when he says unpopular is irrational, unreasonable, and targeted on the very people who are working hard, paying their taxes, and are squeezed the most by every other bastard doing bugger all.
Katie Hopkins has always been bold in expressing her views, and her recent criticism of Keir Starmer's authoritarian leadership style has caused a wide resonance in Britain. This discontent became so strong that Keir Starmer could not contain his emotions during the live broadcast. Starmer harshly suppresses the opinions of those who disagree with him, which jeopardizes the basic principles of a free society. Hopkins particularly focuses on how the Labour Party treats the elderly, arguing that pensioners have been forgotten under Starmer's cursory leadership.
Carol Vorder-Norks, I wonder if you could answer a question for us. Now, I know you take responsibility for the Labour victory, and also you're really, really good at maths. So can you explain to us why old ceramic bobhead Rachel Reeves has stolen 300 quid from the very poorest pensioners who will die this winter in order to give 11 billion quid to despot dictators and tyrants that run countries in Africa where it's hot? Now, I admire you on so many levels. I love your norks of porn. I love your tiny little waist. I love what the surgeons have done to your face. I love that you said what you thought on the BBC and got fired. And I love that you've gone after Michelle Mone. But I also know what it's like at LBC. You're having to rim James O'Brien on a daily basis. You're having to lick the fat out of the folds of fatty folk.
Don't vote for Labour. Rachel Reeves, defending her position, stated with astonishing indifference that these people would not have voted for the Labour Party anyway. Hopkins paints a picture of hard-working citizens who gave their lives for the good of society, but were brutally rejected by the government. Instead of solving the real, pressing problems that people face, the current administration is mired in vague and unrealistic goals, demonstrating complete indifference and a blatant lack of responsibility. In her last comment, Hopkins raised crucial issues concerning the interests of the majority of the population. This has become especially evident thanks to a petition calling for a general election, which directly challenges Starmer's policies. This petition calls into question, is he really paying attention to those who need support the most, or is he just ignoring their suffering? At the moment, the petition has been signed by more than 2.5 million people. Whether you agree with this or not, it cannot be denied that Hopkins has become a shining voice of the growing anger and frustration of British society, which is tired of the indifference and irresponsibility of the Labour Party under Starmer's leadership.
Comrades, my name is Keir Starmer, and I'm here to fuck the foundations. When I became your Prime Minister, not only did I get new hair and glasses provided by a donor who now has full access to 10 Downing Street and my bedroom, we were promised three things. Number one, we would be fully costed and fully funded. We're so fully funded and fully costed, we're essentially just like Katie Price, or HS2, or the public sector in Argentina pre-Milei, depending on your sense of humour. In order to make the £22 billion hole in the budget even worse, we have spunked a whole bunch of cash at train drivers and junior doctors. This guarantees two things. Number one, they will vote Labour. Number two, nurses and teachers will be on strike again by the end.
With her direct and uncompromising approach, Hopkins has forced Starmer to face the mounting anger of a public that feels completely ignored and neglected. There is a serious accusation at the centre of the debate. Starmer is trying to eliminate voices like Nigel Farage and Lee Anderson from platforms like GB News. While some argue that these personalities only sow discord, Hopkins emphatically states that they represent important points of view that have long gone unnoticed or deliberately suppressed. According to her, the ban on expressing disagreement only highlights Starmer's weakness, as if he is afraid to face uncomfortable questions. This not only reinforces public skepticism about his leadership qualities, but also demonstrates his complete inability to face disturbing realities. For Hopkins, this is not just a political issue, it is a real struggle to protect the right to freedom of speech. She emphasizes that a true leader should be ready to listen to criticism and resist it, and not hide from it like a coward. Hopkins argues that an open dialogue with opposing viewpoints is the foundation of transparency and accountability.
End of the week. We also promised to tread more lightly on people. We're doing this by arresting 11 and 12-year-old white boys in their own homes, even though their mothers are off partying in Ibiza. Typical. And if you're a wife of a Tory councillor, please know that we will send you to Birmingham in order to be given your sentencing, because local communities need to see us sacrificing white people in order that we can secure their votes next election. Also be crucifying anybody critical of this regime. If I get my hands on that slag Katie Hopkins, she's well and truly fucked. Elderly people, I will crush you. I will take your bus passes, I will take your heat, and I will take the joy from your life, and you will die early, because the way we can ease the burden on the NHS is by crushing people who don't typically vote for it.
She expertly uses the real stories of pensioners to show painful realities: high electricity bills, insufficient medical care, and pathetic support for social programs. She positions herself as a defender of those left behind, constantly asking herself, has the quality of life of the working class really improved under Starmer's leadership? This opinion is shared by other figures such as Jeremy Kyle, who also speaks out strongly. Kyle furiously highlights the government's misguided attitude towards immigration and housing. He expresses deep concern that migrants are being accommodated in hotels, while many homeless British citizens remain without the necessary assistance. Hopkins amplifies this discontent by sharply criticizing the government's strange priorities, which seem to pay special attention to migrants, leaving British citizens in need of safe housing to fend for themselves. It's not just politics, it's a matter of human dignity.
Are you now feeling the pressure? Because I think there's a petition that's currently
Your approval
online
ratings have dropped.
1.9 people who want the election to go again.
It's now
Is it 2 million now?
It's now just over 2 million.
Do you feel the pressure?
Look, I remind myself that very many people didn't vote Labour at the last election. I'm not surprised that many of them want a rerun. That isn't how our system.
Recognizing the importance of supporting migrants, Hopkins strongly emphasizes that this should not be at the expense of the interests of British citizens. The growing discontent becomes even more evident when she furiously criticizes Starmer's empty promises, especially his assurances that taxes will not be raised. When Starmer and his deputy, Angela Rayner, announced their intention not to increase taxes, many working families took it as a ray of hope in dark times. But now that taxes have increased, this promise has become a betrayal that has caused a storm of indignation among people. For Hopkins, the tax increase is not just a financial problem. It is a serious betrayal of trust that deeply wounds people's hearts. Working families, who are already struggling to cope with rising prices and inflation, now face even higher taxes, which makes them feel abandoned and cheated. For them, financial stability is not just a dream, but a vital necessity for survival. The contradiction between Starmer's promises and the harsh reality that people face every day is becoming unbearable and requires an immediate solution.
Keir Starmer has been in Italy with Meloni. So you've got a left-wing, radical left-wing human rights guy over with what would be labelled as far-right Meloni in Italy. Now I appreciate many of you will know much of this already, but it bears repeating at some level. Firstly, Meloni has been very successful at getting migrant numbers down. She's done that by, number one, hitting where they leave. So Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, she's making deals with those guys to stop the boats. So the deals aren't go stop the boats, the deals are if you stop the boats, we're going to invest in you. So investments in trade, investments in deals, in infrastructure or whatever. So she's funding development of those countries in order for them to work with her and stop the damn boats.
Hopkins bitterly argues that the rich can effortlessly cope with the burden of tax increases, while for working families this means the cruel need to make difficult choices, cut spending on vital things, sacrifice even the smallest amenities and fight a grueling struggle every day to make ends meet. She furiously criticizes Starmer for his complete inaction in the face of the growing alienation of Labour Party voters who feel betrayed and abandoned by their own party. Polls and discussions on social media vividly reflect this universal frustration and anger. Many people who believed in his hopeful promises are now horrified to realize that he has failed to solve the key problems that concern them. Some even dare to call him one of the most ineffective leaders in recent history. According to Hopkins, Starmer's passive and reactive approach to leadership only reinforces the growing sense of frustration and hopelessness among the public. Share your thoughts in the comments. See you later.